Sathisha from Junglescapes will be presenting on ecological restoration of buffer forest by local community by means of traditional ecological knowledge. Satisha is passionate about conservation of ecology and biodiversity. He has been spending time in restoring degraded forest areas in the Lokere Reserve Forest Hamlet, adjacent to the Bandipur National Park in India, by linking village people to conservation efforts through a group of GE volunteers. GE volunteers, in partnership with Junglescape Charitable Trust, are involved in the unique pilot project that was aimed at restoring degraded reserve forest situated adjacent to the fully protected Bandipur Tiger Reserve. We welcome you, sir.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. We'll make it more interactive rather than just listening kind of a thing. We'll have a 5 minutes questionnaire probably. If you have any question, we'll go through that. To give you a background, I think you already got it. Professionally, I'm not a landscape architecture or the conservationist. I'm basically a scientist working in an organization. Conservation is more of a passion. So I do volunteer through a company, and I got involved in all these restoration efforts. It's almost close to 10 years now. So basically, all the work which Junglescapes does, predominantly supported by GE, where I work under CSR, under volunteering forum. So because I'll tell you where it all started, because when we get started. Before that, I'll just give you brief about what is Junglescapes. Junglescape is an NGO which work in a grassroots level, working very closely with the community. Because without having community, if you do any restoration, it's difficult to take it forward. You need somebody to own it. You can always coordinate it, but somebody has to own it. And we believe local community who are living within the vicinity of the forest, vicinity of the where the stewardship is there, they probably own it and they nurture it. That is the overall motivation what we had, and that is how we pursue our all our effort. So this is where it's all started. It did not started like let's go and do some conservation. It's all started with some passionate volunteers who basically wanted to do. I basically go for bird watching and visited this place. And if you go in November, it's a beautiful place. You find a lot of migratory birds. It's a beautiful landscape. You have a grassland, you have a forest, you have a streams, and it's like heaven. And yeah, we felt very good, and okay, let's have a couple of visits. And then we visited in a month of probably March or April, and we started seeing this forest. It's like a desert actually, because that is a landscape transformation what you see from monsoon to summer. And it's a dry decidual forest, low rainfall. It changes the landscape very quickly actually, and we saw, okay, let's do something. And as everyone think, okay, let's plant. That is how we started our conservation. And we started with 7,000 plants. We started and we planted. We came back next year. We saw good results, but we felt something is missing here. We may not be doing right thing the way we supposed to do. Then we started looking at the landscape, architecture, how this landscape is designed, what are the methodologies or approaches we should have. And another question, do we have that knowledge to do that? That is the foremost question what we had. And then we started with discussing with all these people. If you look at all these people, right, they're all indigenous tribal villages who are living with outside the forest, or probably in the edge of the forest. And they're mostly disconnected with the forest and its life, but they're all they go for the daily wage kind of a thing, because they were all inside the forest, and they came out of the forest and they don't know what to do. They have been provided with the land, but they don't know agriculture, right? So that is where we started, and we started discussing with all these people what is the what was the forest actually in the past. And we got very interesting points. And then we started putting together in a sort of a format where what is the knowledge they have, how can we use that knowledge to restore this forest in a better way. And to give you a background of the landscape, you see this is the basically Bandipur, what you see in the green patch, right? It comes under Karnataka state, and is spread across. It's connected actually. It's connected all the way through, almost like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and all the way up to Goa as well, right? So, and it provides the very vital, critical elephant, corridor. And this particular corridor cut through these places where we have this buffer zone actually, which is not the protected forest. It is just a reserve forest, and it will cut through that forest. It's very very sensitive, and you typically arise with all this human animal conflict. Fortunately, it did not happen to this place, because I'll tell you the reason. These people are indigenous tribal community. They know the forest, they know the wildlife, they respect everything. That is where the conflict of between the people and the animal is very very less because of their knowledge actually. So this is the little bit little more detail about the Bandipur forest where it is where you can see here. And this is where our project plot actually, it's close to about 10,000 acres of a buffer zone in the boundary of the Bandipur, and these are the different ranges what you see here. And in that locale is a village, it's a reserve forest. Now government declared, after a lot of effort from the community and everything, it's declared as the eco sensitive zone because it provides the very critical migratory path, and also it houses a lot of bird species and lot of other animal species basically. So that is very recently it declared as the eco sensitive zone. It connects the northern part of the Bandipur and southern part of the Bandipur very well. That is why it is now it is as eco sensitive zone. And when you look at landscape, right, Bandipur, if anyone think of it's like this actually, it's a lush green forest with lot of tigers kind of a thing. That is a imagination what we have. But if you visit the buffer zone, this is how it looks like actually. You see this barren land. It's basically it's a landscape is slightly different from core. This is if you get a rainfall about 1200 to 1500 millimeter per year. Here on average rainfall is 600 millimeter kind of a thing, or maximum 700 millimeter. Another thing is it comes under the rain shadow region. It's surrounded by the Nilgiri hills on the other side of it, so it makes the rain shadow region. So that is why it creates the transformation will be very quick because it doesn't get enough rain in the monsoon. So 600 700 millimeter of rain. So with this kind of challenge and landscape, so we started thinking what are the issues with the landscape itself. Because when we talk to a community, they say 30 years back it was a beautiful forest, and it has turned into like this actually, some sort of a dry decidual. But it is historically it is actually it is a combination of dry decidual, and also it has a little bit of stream covered, so that it will give the some of the green cover as well. So we started putting together what are the degradation phenomenon, how it happens. There are a lot of issues. One is of course it's a very human introduced conflict. Basically grazing is one of the big issue, and cutting trees is another issue, and using forest product more than what you need is another issue by the local people surrounding. And another one is the biggest issue what we are facing is the invasive species, Lantana camera and the Spena spectabulus. Those are the invasive plants which we see. Of course we will have Parthenium issue, but that may not be very big as the Lantana from the landscape point of view. So considering all these things, we started putting together methodology. How do we restore this forest? How do we talk to people? How do we get their knowledge in place so that we can get that kind of understanding going on. So what we have actually, we have a scientific way of restoring it, but if you don't know how the landscape works, it is difficult to restore this forest. That is where we work very closely with the local community who are living in the edge of the forest, because they have enormous knowledge. They know all the medicinal plants which are available in the forest. They know how the water flows in a landscape, this kind of a landscape, and they do it very well. Only thing is we provide them a little bit of scientific knowledge. How do we mix the scientific knowledge as well as the traditional knowledge what they have, and make it more effective. So this is the we did a lot of study. We had involved a lot of students basically from different universities to study all this ecological, basically traditional knowledge and ecological restoration. Some of them are, not all of them at least, some of them are typically they match what you call it as a traditional knowledge actually, which otherwise we may not have. It's difficult to get from ourselves. So they have a huge or the whatever you call it as the traditional knowledge, which is bound by the natural phenomenon, what they call it as actually, and they try to connect with, okay, this year I didn't get enough rain and this could be a reason. That is how they start with that, and they connect that with every plant which they have, and the waterfall and the stream connected. So they try to connect that very well, and I'll explain what are the traditional points, traditional knowledge what they have, how did we use that to restore the forest in this particular landscape. So one thing I think first when we started working with them, what we found that actually they were not connected with any kind of a restoration effort which forest department actually doing, right? So we work with very closely with the forest department, and forest department was working alone, doing a lot of this work. And what we did actually, we tried to match these two between the community and the forest, that is very combined together. And we convinced forest department without taking community support we cannot achieve this one. So that is where we started, and we got a very good support from the forest department, from the local community, and we have all the corporates to put in forward, and we have this knowledge to do that. So that is where we started. We started discussing with the people, and we basically discussing with the people, and we started with very low level. We didn't get into a very high level of intervention. We started with very low level. I'll show what is the first point what we got in. So one thing I think one is a perception, right? So forest department, as soon as the people comes into a forest department mind, they think people, they basically, this conflict is coming because of the people. But yeah, so but what they typically go through is the some sort of dilemma whether they really need it or not. So what we did actually, the threat what they what forest department or what others think, we try to take that threat as the knowledge, and we try to convert into a collaboration kind of a thing. So they have this knowledge, can we use of it? So that is where we started working with them. And these are the couple of indigenous community who are living in the forest, who really lost this knowledge of basically all the traditional knowledge of collecting honey or collecting forest product in a traditional way what used to happen. And we started working there. We started putting the honey collection box in their premises, so that they can get that feeling how they collect it, and elders can teach them, and they can get started. Then they can think of the forest. When I go to forest, okay, this is the process I have to follow. That is where we started with all our what do you call the process. And yeah, there are a lot of people involved, and there are a lot of elder people who each village there will be one or two elder people who have this knowledge, and rest all youngsters who almost disconnected from this particular knowledge. And that is where we started talking to elders, why don't you teach the younger ones, and start thinking on all this ecological conservation. They did fantastic job in there. And this where I think we had all the challenge. And then I think when you look at the livelihood from them, right, it is basically a daily wage, and there has to be a economical backup from their side. Like, they need to think of it, okay, this is helping me from economically, otherwise difficult to convince them why we are doing it. That is where we started with involving all the people who are working in there. So basically and we connected them with different communities, which not just one community, there are different communities who are living in there. Some of them are from the agriculture background, some of them are from the traditional honey collection. We combined all of them. That is it's a massive work which first 4 years we have done, basically because we go only on Saturday and Sunday. We try to do all this work during the weekend, and try to get them and sit with them. How do we do it? Have a late evening meetings, late evening almost have a discussion, very close discussion with them. So basically we need to create that trust, otherwise it's difficult to get them on board, because they're not the people who come forward, okay, I'll help you. They're a little bit shy about what they do, but they are, at the same time they appreciate what they do. So we started collecting all these people, all the information about the forest, what was the forest in the past, what is the animal basically movement in the forest, how they behave. All this information we started collecting from them. Then we started putting together a methodology, how do we restore the forest, because without their support, without their what do you call the commitment, it's difficult. And as I mentioned, grazing was another issue, and we had a huge support from the community, stopping the grazing, not to stopping, basically shifting. They adopted the shifting grazing methodology, because grazing was another biggest challenge what we faced in the degradation of this forest. And that is where they're committed actually, okay, we are restoring this region, we will not graze here, we will take it in other region and we will graze. So that is the kind of commitment what they had. And with that, I think this is where we started everything. You look at this chart, right? So this is the forest. It looks like buffer zone basically. This is not the core forest, and this is where all the basically all the factors which we considered. And there are as I said, I think we were somewhere we wanted to get started. How do we work, right? So this is where the first project which we started, eco chula. It is basically a chula which they generally use the firewood stove at home, almost all the village people. And we built a beautiful chula which is scientifically designed, which is much more efficient than what they were traditionally using. And when we installed this first chula, they got like, they surprised, wow. And looking at the efficiency of this chula, and this chula works lantana, which is an invasive plant which we were removing in the forest. And we use the lantana, and they don't need to go to a forest to get all the firewood. And this made the breakthrough, and everyone started, okay, I wanted. And we didn't give it for the free. We said no free lunch. So you will get, whatever support from us, but you had to pay. But we gave us some discount, and that is how we started, connecting with them. And that is where our conservation effort started. Basically, stopping the firewood in the forest. That was the first project which we started. Then when we started thinking about it, as I said, I think initially we did some plantation, but we don't want it to continue the same thing actually, because that will not restore the entire forest, because we would have covered almost like less than a quarter acre of the forest out of 10,000 acres in a 1 year. And look at the scale, you will have to do another 30 years to restore the entire forest. So what we thought, okay, let's study the landscape, let's get through what we want, what we can do scientifically and using traditional knowledge, right? So that's where we started, and that is where we put a lot of effort restoring the water bed actually, because water bed was the one of the critical aspect here. And this is the low rainfall region, and these are the naturally where we can revive the forest without having a lot of human intervention, right? So this is where we started, and this is where we started working on the collecting the local seeds from the forest. That is, again, we take the seeding, basically this is the traditional knowledge what they have actually, what time we have to collect, right? So what kind of seeds we have to collect, and we provide the scientific region, how do we store them, how do we keep them, how do we process them further for the plantation kind of a thing. And like this one, like another water spread management what the community has done, they know the landscape better, and they know where is the stream is coming, they know exactly where we need to put these water ponds. Instead of going and putting everywhere, they have this understanding, this is the water flow lines which are connected multiple lines, and this is the right place to do it. And what we do actually, we go on, basically we will drill down a little bit more scientifically. Instead of a mud burn, we go with a stone burn, that kind of a scientific knowledge where we bring in. And getting together that actually, we created almost like 70 to 30 water bodies alone in the forest actually. Those are the small water bodies, they don't store water, so they basically flows through the all the water into the bed, so that it basically revives the water bed. So these are the couple of other again, considering landscape, these are the making a gully plugs kind of a thing, very small things. And people have that knowledge, and they know how the water flows, they get it done. This is where we have done all our effort, basically restoring the thing. Another one is, as I said, we don't plant, but we do regenerate these naturally available plants. You go and put a small trench next to the plant which is already there naturally, that get enough water, and that grows like as tall as like this one actually. So that is the overall approach what we had. And plantation is another one. There are a lot of efforts, it's not the, because it has to be a holistic approach. We cannot just say I'll go and plant, I'll restore the forest. There has to be holistic approach. You need to know the water management, you need to know the how you manage the entire forest. Another one is what I was mentioning is the Lantana camera, which is one of the biggest threat in tiger reserve, which we are scientifically trying to remove. And these people actually, they have a knowledge actually, how do you go inside the forest, how do you pluck them. And basically it's a uproot method what we use. The lantana goes very tall now, and how do you remove it, and you need a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge comes from these people. So that is where we started, and you can see here which is a lantana removed, and that is the progress. And once we remove the lantana, we also have a lantana craft center, because lantana can be even made out, it's a very good material for making furniture and other stuff, so that it will sustain as well. That is the overall what we have done. And we have trained the people there, so that they can make this furniture, they can sell it outside the national park. So that is so that is sustaining for almost like 7-8 years like this, and it is going to continue in a manner so that it will benefit the people. So yeah, almost at the end, probably this is the landscape. If you look at the previous landscape, and these are the water bodies which we have created. Different methodologies, basically, how are we tackling based on the landscape, where we need trenches, where we need ponds, where we need water holes. Those are the different methodologies what we have been started using. And this is what I think what you can see here, almost like 11 years of effort from here, from almost like barren landscape to this kind of a lush green forest, not with a plantation actually. We would have done less than 2 lakhs plantation directly, but lot of greenery is coming from naturally with the water management what we are doing, and also the lantana management which we have. So yeah, so I think this is the rewardship what people get it, the local community, and they have received the full circle award from the SER, Society for Ecological Restoration, in 2017. So that is the biggest award which SER give it to people, and this is the first time in India we could able to get this kind of award for the community driven effort what we are doing. So these are the people who are actually leading from the front. So we typically go to them. You are the and now we don't intervene in anything. We trust them and they go and do everything. We just sit there and back and they take care of everything. So that is the overall what we have. So with that it's going on. We are passing all this traditional knowledge what they have to a people who actually manage. They can manage in future. So yeah. So this is the final probably 10 years of effort what we have, and with that, if you have any question, probably short of time, probably I would have taken a little more time. So we can talk.
I just have a comment, or how we want to take it, is we all struggle with grass seeds across the whole country,
Yeah, yeah,
and you have a wonderful way of kind of getting it.
yeah,
But and also we struggle with native plants across the whole country
yeah.
if we want to do any kind of restoration. So are you making it part of your whole thing to make that available? Seeds and native plants.
Yes,
And that can be a revenue source as well.
yeah, yeah. So that is a valid question actually. And we another thing which I wanted to mention, that we don't want to convert grassland into a forest. That is for sure, because this forest it has a unique grassland, forest, red residual trees and everything, right? And ultimately we don't want to convert grassland into a forest, but reviving grassland itself require huge effort. What we do actually, we take their support. They basically go during the season, they collect the grass seeds from the forest, and also they collect all the native seeds from the forest. They go and collect it. Typically they do it during they're seasonal basically. They collect it and they bring that into we have a craft center there. They separate everything, they go and plant only the native plants. That is how they the local community do it.
No, my question is, like, are these seeds available to others at a price?
uh, it's
Because it's a huge source of revenue.
Yeah.
1 kg of seed will be sold at like 1500 rupees. So that's something one can look at.
Yeah, definitely. I think that can be possible, and I think we are working with Moge, Kastub Moge. So he also visited a couple of times our place, especially for the nursery. There is opportunity, but it's very difficult to make it generic, because these plants or native plants, what you call, they're very specific, native to Bandipur sometimes. They're very probably indigenous. It's difficult to put them in other places, but there are some common species which we can definitely manage. Seeds is one of the difficult part, because looking at the landscape, because not the big grassland actually, it's a very pockets of grassland. The availability of the seedlings will be much limited, but in the forest, other trees, probably there is some opportunity.
Thanks.